This week, Andrew McLeod and Warren Tredrea were among a group of players inducted into the Australian Football Hall of Fame. Their names are now amongst the immortals of the game, including one man who passed away more than 40 years ago, but still has people talking.
Recently, in the front bar of a Melbourne pub, a group of people gathered to remember a half-century ago when a young man lit up their winter Saturday afternoons.
At the first match of the year, and he kicked 12 goals. And we said, oh, where's this bloke been, sort of business, you know, and he was great.
He was so exciting. You know, Ken Fraser spoke about the stands jumping up and down, and that was right, it was true. Even the Saints fans were doing it. They were aghast at his brilliance.
His old boots and moth-eaten number 10 Guernsey are treated as sacred football relics. But such was John Coleman's charisma, style and ability that comparisons are sought beyond the sporting field.
He was perhaps the Frank Sinatra of football after the Second World War.
You make me feel so young. You make me feel so spring has sprung.
From his stunning debut, John Coleman was a star.
I'm such a happy individual.
He was the VFL's leading goal kicker in his first 5 seasons, and he made Essendon the side to beat.
We played in 3 grand finals before he came, as I said. We won 46, lost 47, 48. Then we won 49 and 50. 1951, he got rubbed out for 4 weeks. That's another one we would have won, so it was a goal. We should have won 6 on the trot, actually, because we were the best side in the competition.
As a result of his heroics, the AFL awards the Coleman Medal to the leading goal kicker each season. But statistically, Coleman wasn't the greatest spearhead. The Tasmanian Peter Hudson averaged more goals per match. Ken Farmer from North Adelaide kicked more than anyone at league level. Bernie Naylor once dobbed 23 goals in a match for South Fremantle. On the list of AFL-VFL goal scorers, John Coleman ranks a modest 48th. But what can't be recorded with statistics is the excitement he generated.
You'd see the photos in the paper that would encourage people to go to matches where they moved from one end of the ground to the other at quarter-time breaks so that they could watch the great man in action.
The photographs record single moments, but because John Coleman played in the era before television, there's less than 2 minutes of known footage of him. Until now. This beautiful 16mm colour footage has been acquired by the National Film and Sound Archive. It was found as a chance discovery amid 80 cans of film in the estate of a collector.
When we went through the films, we came across all sorts of interesting titles. There was 1956 Melbourne Olympic Games footage, there was documentary titles, and also there were several cans of 1950s VFL football action that hadn't been seen since the day that they were filmed.
The vision is of the 1953 VFL semi-final, Footscray against Essendon. It's rare because newsreels of the era were shot in black and white and normally only covered grand finals. Archivist Simon Smith says this film was shot for the independent cinema called the Star Theaterette.
They would screen hour-long packages of short films, dramas, documentaries, international newsreels, and sometimes there'd also be local Australian content which the theaterette themselves would go out and film.
No doubt the Star Theaterette lens focused on John Coleman, given his ability to put bums on seats, and they used precious extra film stock by filming Coleman in slow motion in the hope he would do something special. What they didn't know was that the star full forward was unwell.
He only had 3 possessions that day and kicked 1 goal too. I couldn't believe how competitive he was in those clashes with Herb Henderson because he'd been in bed with the flu all week.
Away from Coleman, there are other glimpses of an era when woolen jumpers covered sleeves and leather boots covered ankles. There's the reason why fans miss an elegant drop kick and why coaches ban players using them. A young Ted Whitten, number 3 for Footscray, causes mayhem, unlike his skipper Charlie Sutton. But the Bulldog under the most pressure this day was the full-back wearing number 25.
Leg position again, Herb.
At home in Millicent, Herb Henderson still remembers being John Coleman's stepladder.
I'm sitting there waiting for this mark and I felt the smack on the shoulder. And it wasn't until I saw the papers next day that I realised just how high he was.
The 84-year-old remembers the 1953 semi-final when he and illness restricted John Coleman.
One of the cartoons in the paper had the goalposts and the point posts and a hammock strung between the goalposts and Coleman on the hammock. And it had Henderson on the flu.
Trying to find bets, he'll get a second chance at it, Douglas.
The nostalgia for century goal kickers like John Coleman seems to grow, especially as the modern game trends into a rolling scrum with a spread of goal kickers.
If John Coleman was playing in today's conditions, would he kick a century of goals? And you have to think, well, he's going to be playing a very different role. He's not just going to be one out in the goal square, you know, leading up, taking mark, kicking a goal. He's also going to be putting on defensive pressure, chasing the fullback. You know, he's going to be expending energy doing that, and he might not, you know, be able to kick 10 goals a game.
ABC journalist James Coventry is writing a book charting the trends in Australian football. He says history shows the rise and fall of dominant forwards like Coleman normally follows rule changes that help or hinder their style.
When you ask, is there ever going to be another century goal kicker, it really presupposes the fact that the game's going to be played the same in 5, 10, 15 years' time. When you look at the history of the game, that's highly unlikely to be the case.
What the star theaterette didn't know when filming this final was that it would be Coleman's last big game. Early the next season, a knee injury ended his playing career. After a successful stint coaching Essendon, he retired from football but died of a heart attack at the age of just 44. But thanks to a new biography and a chance film discovery, the memory of John Coleman is now richer and more vivid.
Now, we've been carrying this opinion of Coleman for 60 years, that he's still the greatest, not just the greatest full forward, but the greatest player.